Okay. So, good evening, everyone. We are going to be starting the class immediately. Um, Today, we are going to be looking at the use of sequelize and mongoose as a mapper, and also to do some level of validation for the data we are going to be having in our database. Are we there? So, we are going to start with mongoose anyway. It's like we are going to be using mongoose much in our subsequent work. So when we are done with that, then we can actually look at sequelize as well. So are we good to go? Okay. So let me share my screen now so
Yes.
we can start. Good. So we not want to take too much time. Okay. 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 I want to believe we can all see my screen. So let me take all this out because this is what I have written before. Let me just take this out. Control S. Let me put it somewhere down here. And now comment it. We are not going to be using this for now. So now this is our application. So we are all familiar with this. That we are using Express. Cons Express equals to require Express. Then let me move out of this. Let me hide this. Okay. Okay. So now this is our express we are declaring here. That's the framework we are using. Then we are going to be, I've actually created some folders and files here, which I believe we are very familiar with. Let me just close this so that I can explain it. So, okay. So now I've created a folder called config here. I have another folder called model. Then I have another folder called users here, right? So I will be creating a folder that we are going to be working with now. So let me call it MKDIR. Uh, let me call it students. Let me call it students, MKDIR student. That's the new folder that I am creating now. So enter. So now I have a student what? A student folder. Are we together? Now, this is a route we are going to be working with now. We are going to be creating a what? A model for these students. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Hope my voice is not cracking.
No, not at all.
Not at all. That's very good. So this is the student folder, right? And this is our express declaration here. Then at line 4, this is the port is being processed from the what? From the environment file .m file. You can see a .m file here. That is where we store our port. So when you run process.m.port, it catches it and store it inside this port variable, right? So the essence of this .env, just to recap, is to hide some secret information, right? It's not only the port, we are also going to be storing our database URL inside it. Let me open the .f file for you to see what is there. Now, if you look at this .f file now, look at it, you can see we have our port, which we are using 4000, and we have our database URL also here, right? So this is it here. We are not dealing with this. Let me delete this. This is not doing anything here. Good. So this is our database URL. So this is a secret information because this URL contains the password to our database. I'm going to show you where this is being copied from, and it also contains the name for what? For the user. This is the username Sulaiman, and this is the password to the database. So I'm keeping this for this section. I'm definitely going to change it after this section. It has to be something personal. Do you understand? You can always edit your password. So this is the name, username, and this is the password. Then this is the name of what? Of the database we are connecting with, which is Bookstore, right? So I'm going to show you where this is being copied from, or how it looked like originally before we start inserting the password, the username and the what and the name of the database. These are the three informations you are going to be, inserting into your database URL. Is that clear? Now, we have these two in our .f file, and in our app.js, we are picking out the port number here using process.f for the port. Then this is our app declaration here. Then we are asking our app to listen, right? So we are all familiar with this. Now, the next step is that what are the datas we actually uh, intend inserting into our database. Now, for this section, I am calling it the student what? The student information, right? Student information. Now, for these students now, we are going to create some files now. Let's create a file now. Let's call this file uh, students.js, right? So this student.js is going to be the what? The route for the student. Then in our model, I'm also going to come into the model too inside this model. But okay, this student route, let me edit this one and call it student.route. Let me rename it and call it student.route dot what dot js. So uh, that is better, speaks more as indicating it as what? As a route. Then I will also come into my model folder because I will need a model for this route. Are you getting me? To work with. So there's a difference between the model and the what and the route. So get that clear. I want you to be picking this thing one after the other. So organize your knowledge. When you organize your knowledge, you find this thing very easy. I tell you. Now, this is the model and this is the what? This is the route. So I'm going to come inside the model. I have some other models there before, like seller, user.js. These are the one I've worked with before. So I'm going to create another file here. Let's call it students dot what dot .js. It's going to be a JavaScript file as well, student.js. So that is going to be the model. Now, first of all, we are familiar with the route, right? Let me just quickly write that. We are familiar with that, and that will lead us to the next thing. Now, in this route now, don't forget, the first thing we need to do is to declare our what? Our express, right? Express equals to require express. Are we there? Good. Then the next thing is for you to what? To say const what? Student router now. You declare your student router to be equals to what? Express dot what? Dot router, right? Good. So this is a router for the what? For the students. Now, you now say student router. What do you want to actually do with the what? With the router. So you say student router dot what? Now, what we want to do is to post. We want to create information for the students. So we are going to be using what? What are we going to do? Post, right? So because we are creating information for the what? For the students now. So when you are posting, so it's going to be slash the name, of the route, which we are going to indicate in our app what? App.js. So you just leave it as slash here, right? So then what will happen? You can now say your what? Your controller dot create user. But I don't want to start creating a controller folder. It's the best way actually for you to modularize your code. So here I can just say controller dot what? Dot create student, right? You can say controller dot create student. But mind you, Where is this controller file? We don't have it presently, right? So in order to try to manage time, don't let me modularize it, because if I use it like this, I'm going to create another controller file, have this function there, then now import it inside this place. But I want us to move very fast. I think we all know how to do that, right? So for us to move very fast, I'm just going to what? Just have the controller right inside there, the what? Inside the route, and say request and what? And response. Then call back. Hello? Are we getting it? Do you get what I just explained about the use of controller and having your controller right inside here? Do we
Yes,
understand
sir.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's even
That
good to see it come out this way. It's another
eh,
way of doing it, so it's
okay,
good to
that's
see
very
it
fine.
like this way.
Oh, that's very fine. That's very fine. Good. Now we have our callback functions now that handles the request and the what and the response. So now what do we want to do with the student router? We want to create what? We want to create students. That's what we want to do. So definitely you are going to have a variable here that will be called const to what? Const to body, because the student you want to create, you are going to enter the information of the student in the what? In the body of the request. Remember, if you go to your Thunder client now, you have a new request here. Let me just say this is a post request now. Now look at this. This is an information now that we are trying to what? We are trying to post. Now, this information now is in the body of the request. You can see body. So because it is in the body of the request, that means you are grabbing it first from the body. We are familiar with that. That is just a reminder. Where is it? The student router. Okay, this is it here. Now, so now we are grabbing it. So I say const body. You can give it any variable you like. I am just calling it body. You can say student info from body. Just give it any name you like. So the const body to be equals to what? Request dot what? Dot body, right? Request dot what? Dot body is going to grab what is in the body of the request and store it inside this body, right? So that is that. Then the next thing after grabbing request.body is for you to what? Is for you to say now const what? The new student that you now want to create now, right? To be equals to what? You are creating a new student now. Now, this is where our model is going to work. Please, this is where the difference is between what we have been doing before and what we are doing now, right? So we are going to be using our model now to create our student, and it makes our work easier. If you can remember before, when we want to create a student, like here now, I am going to json.pass. Remember, do you still remember that here before I will say json dot what? Dot pass. Do you understand? I will say json.pass. Then I will now put the what? The body, right? This is what we used to do before. Just to convert it to a JSON object, then you now continue writing the code to push it inside what you have in the database after using fs.read. That was when we were using in-memory database, right? We have our database somewhere here. You understand? In the JSON file, we are going to create a JSON file and we will now read it out, then push this new student inside it. Do you still remember that? I want response. Do you still remember that? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we are not going to be doing that again. Our model will make our work easier now, right? We are not going to be doing that. So we are going to be using a model now, which we are going to be calling user. Okay, not user now, students. We're going to be calling it student model. Let's call it student model dot create, right? Dot create. Now, can you see this student dot create? It is not active now. It is not recognized for now. Why? Because we have not imported that model into this route. There's a background noise somewhere. From where, please, let's watch what is coming up in our background. Now, as I said, We have not actually imported any model here. We have not even actually created the model. So this is going to lead us to the next thing now because we need the student model here. So I am going now into this model folder now, then come back to the student.js now to what? To create a model for our students. Are we good to go? That's the next stage now. I'm going into here now to create a what? A model. Now, students, I'm clicking on student now. Now, in order to create a model, remember, we need a mapper. I have installed the mongoose already. If you come to my package.json, you can see I have installed the mapper already. This is it here, mongoose. This is mongoose. I have it here already. Then, I'm going to tell you the reason for all these other installation later. As we move on, as we get to each of them, we talk about them, right? So now, this is our student. We are going to need mongoose that. Now, so comes what? Mongoose. So you need to understand the reason why you are importing mongoose because we need it to what? To create our model. Am I communicating? Require,
Yes, sir.
okay. Require what? Mongoose. Mongoose. Now that we have our mongoose imported, now you will now use the mongoose now to create the schema, right? So we say const what? Const schema, right? To be equals to now because we need a schema. We are talking about any model, whatever model you want to create, the columns that you have there, for you defining columns for a table, right, is you are making it schematic. Whenever you are defining a model for any table, that means you are making that database to be what? To be schematic. So a key schema is a keyword. Are you getting me? That we are going to be calling from mongoose. So here we are going to be saying new. No, sorry. Before now, we are going to say mongoose. Let's call out the schema first. Mongoose dot what? Dot schema. Please note this is a capital letter, right? You can see it's already coming out here. So you can see mongoose dot schema. Please note that this is capital letter S. It is like it is a constructor. Is a what? Is a constructor that we have inside the mongoose what? Mongoose package, right? So it's capital letter S. Please note that that's a common mistake that can be made. So we call it schema. Even here, this one is just like a variable. You can even give this one small letter. It doesn't mean you are storing that schema, right? You are storing it inside this variable. So, but because schema is always capital letter, that's why we are giving the variable also capital letter S. If you like, you can give it small letter S. That doesn't mean. But here, at this point, it's supposed to be, it should be mongoose dot capital letter S schema, right? So that's very good. If you put your cursor on it, you can see class schema. So it's a class. So that's very, very important. So let's move on. Now, we now have our schema. Now we are going to be using it to we are going to create an instance of that schema now and say const our what? Our student schema now. We are being precise now that okay, we want to create an instance of student schema now. That's line 5. An instance of student schema, which is going to be what? The schema, this one here, that stores this schema class, right? Mind you, is an instance, is going to be new. So we are going to use the new keyword here, right? So student schema equals to new schema. So then you have what? You have your parentheses here. So here you are having an instance of new schema already, student schema already. So this is an instance. This is the basic thing you need to understand first. So we are declaring a what? A schema for the students here. And what we are storing inside it is an instance of what? Of a schema, right? So now here you can now come up with your attributes, the attribute for that student schema. So now you are going to open the word, you are going to have a curly braces first. That's where you are going to have your attributes now. So what are the attributes you are going to be having for the student schema? You begin to define them, right? Um, the first thing is that this is mongoose, right? Remember, the schema is coming from mongoose, and mongoose by default we have an ID that will be generated automatically. If you have your model and you don't put ID will definitely be what? Be generated. But the reason why I'm going to put ID now in this format, don't forget, you are going to have underscore before the ID. That is the format in which we have the ID of mongoose. But in SQLite, you can just put just ordinary ID, right? So now the reason why I'm putting ID is because I want to change the format of the ID. I don't want that long format, of mongoose ID. I want to shorten it. So I am going to use short ID now. I'm going to use short ID dot generate. I want you to note that. That is going to be the the ID, the type of the ID. Let me just do this. It's not going to be here directly. It's going to be the type. So that's going to be the type. So that is the type of the ID. The type of the ID is going to be what? Short what? Short ID dot what? Dot generate. Are we there? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I
So
want
the
to ask
type,
you.
sorry, hold on. The type is going to be string. Sorry, I'm making a mistake there. The type is going to be what? Is going to be a string, right? You want to ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay, I'm with you.
The, okay. The short ID, is it an NPN package? Is it something that you install?
Yes. I'm coming to that. It's an npm package. We are going to install it now, but I already have it installed. Let me show you in the package.json. If you look here now, you can see line 18. We are going to install it by running npm short id. Then you can have it is a package in the npm, right? So
Yes.
that answers your question, right? Good. So let's go back. The type of the ID is string, please. The type of the ID is string. Then you have your comma. So what we are trying to do now is that for this attribute ID, want to set constraints for the ID, right? So the ID is the attribute. This type and every other constraints we are going to be writing there are just like conditions for the ID, constraints for the ID, that this is what we want the ID to look like, right? So now, apart from the type, you can also have a default. You understand? You can also have a default for the what? For the student ID. Sorry. So the default here is going to be what? Is going to be short ID now. Short ID dot generate, right? Short ID dot generate. Now, but this is not functional now. We need to actually import it, right? So we have const what? Const short ID to be equals to require. Are we together? Short ID. Please note something. There is a common mistake that happened here. When you are writing your short ID, don't forget the I is a small letter, not the usual camel case of writing. So it's going to be what? It's going to be ID here. Short ID. Let's look at the short ID. When you are installing a small letter I, then you can give it any variable you like. That variable is what we are bringing here, and we are saying dot what? Dot generate, right? So that is that. Then apart from the default, what other constraints can we give the ID? Can you remind me? Please, I want you to talk. Let's make it interactive. What other constraints can we set for the ID? I'm listening. Hello? Are we there? Okay. Yes? I can't hear anybody talking. What other constraints can we set for the ID apart from type and default? Nobody is talking. Okay, but can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Wow, I'm not hearing any voice. What happened? Hello?
I can
Hello?
hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, okay.
But I
Mr.
don't have answer to
Adebisi,
your question. Yeah.
Adebisi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I just asked a question now. Did you hear the question?
I heard the question, but I don't have answer to it. So
Okay, you don't have answer to it. Okay, okay.
yes.
So now another constraints we can actually set for the ID is auto increment. Auto what? Auto increment. Then your auto increment is going to be is this I is going to be capital letter increment. Please note all these small letter, capital letter of a thing. You can start getting bugs because of that. It has happened to me. This I, when I was rushing, I made a typo. It's just I put small letter I and it was giving me a lot of problem. It took me a lot of time before I detected it. Please note all this. Capital letter I for the increment, right? And when you are writing your short ID, don't forget this ID I is what is small letter I. Are we there? So auto increment, you are going to set it to be true. So why are we doing that? Is that we want any other subsequent, as we are creating students, we want their ID to be what? To be increasing. You understand? When an ID is 1, the next ID should be 2. When we have 2, the next ID to be 3. That is what you are setting here, that the auto increment to be what? To be true. Is that clear? Then what again? You can set required to. Required. These are the basic required basic constraints that you must set for your attributes, right? So required to should also be what? Should be true. So we are done with the ID. Then you put comma here and go to the next attribute. So what attributes again do we need for the student? We need first name, right? First name, right? So then you can put your curly bracket. Please don't forget the syntax. First name, colon, then curly bracket. The same way we have ID, colon, then what? Then the curly bracket. Then the next first thing you are going to have is the type, right? So what is the type of what? Of the first name? It's going to be string, right? String.
That's fine.
Then don't forget your string start with capital letter S. Very, very important. These are where bugs used to come. Don't go and write small letter S for your string, capital letter S, right? So then you can set your required. Required should be what? Should be true, right? Required, as in past tense, required. Please be noting all these things I'm mentioning. Required, as in past tense, not required, present tense. It's required, past tense, then true, right? So you put your comma. Let's have our last name. We also need last name of the student. So I'm going to copy and paste because it's going to be the same constraint, right? Control copy, control paste. Are we there? Then what again do we need from the students? Okay, let's just assume that the student is just like the normal user that we have password. So let's put password. There's a reason why I want to put password there, very important. So let's say password. So what's the type of the password? The type of the password is also going to be a string. Hold on, is anybody trying to connect? Oh, admit. Hey, some people are trying to come in. I'm not admitting though. Yeah. Please, when you note anybody trying to come in, please let me know so that I can admit the person because I'm not seeing it from the. Okay,
Maybe you can make one of us an admin.
okay, that's what I'm looking at. Okay, set host control. Let me see. Um, Permission access. No one. No one has to. Okay, let me
Yeah, you
just
can
make
use
it.
it.
Yeah, let me make it open exactly so anybody can join. Okay, sorry, that's what I ought to have done. Okay, good. Um, okay, now we are here. The password we are making it a string as well, right? So then we can required, right? It has to be required too. We make it true. Then one thing, and there's one other very important attribute that we need for password and ID. Who can remind me, please? Let's try to rack our brain a little. There's one very important attribute that is very good for ID and password. ID must not be the same with any other person ID, and password must not be the same with any other password, right? So there's one attribute that we must actually put in to check that, to ensure that. Let's try to recall it. Yes, let's rack our brain a little. Yes, 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 yes. Who can actually remind me? There is one very important attribute that makes our ID and password not to be the same with any other person ID and password. Do you understand? As it is being created. Yes. Okay. Nobody with the answer. Mr. Odili, are you there? Odili. Okay. Okay, no problem. Let's move on. The constraint is called unique. Unique, right? You set unique true for what? For ID and password, right? It has to be unique. Unique. Oh, what am I typing? Okay. Okay. True. Then here, unique. Unique has to be what? Has to be true as well, right? So now let's leave it like this: ID, first name, last name, password. Okay, let's ask one very last one. Let's add email. Email. Let's add email. Let me just copy and paste here. It's still going to be email too has to be unique. So let's add that. Let me copy this. Control copy and paste, because what we are going to be doing by standard, we are going to be using this password and email, for people to sign in. So we are going to be talking about how we are going to do that tomorrow, right? Control J, get out. Where is all this information coming? Let me bring this down. Okay. So so now at this stage now we have our student schema now, but at this stage now it is just a schema. We have not actually converted it to a model. But before we make it a model, there's something very important we must do. We want our password to be what? To be encrypted. We want it to be encrypted. Very, very important. So we want an encrypt what? Password. And there is a package we are going to use to encrypt our password. That package is called what? Bcrypt. It's called what? Bcrypt. So we are going to come here and say npm install what? Npm install what? Bcrypt. Can you see it? Npm install what? Bcrypt. Can we see it clearly? Npm install bcrypt, but I already installed it. I'm not going to do that again. Let me just show you in our package.json. You can see, where is it? Look at it, line 13. Bcrypt is here, right? So we are going to install bcrypt and require it there in that our student route. Why are we doing that? we want to what? Okay, the in our model. Okay, student model. Now, why we are doing that is that we want to encrypt this password in the sense that when the password is getting saved in the database, it's not going to be the raw string, the raw text that the person actually entered into the feed of password. You know, if I say my password now, for example, maybe when I'm actually entering my information, let me come here and put it here. If I say my password is maybe ras 404. Let's say this is my password. This password as it is a very important information. So nobody should have access to it. So now what we want to do now is to encrypt it in such a way that it is never possible for you to decode what is there. You cannot decode what is there. So we are going to be encrypting it so nobody can ever know your password. So it's not going to be stored as RAS404 in the database. It's going to be encrypted, right? So it's going to be hidden inside that encrypted format of password. Am I communicating? So that is what we are going to be using bscript to what? To do now. So I'm going to come here and what? And say const what? B what? Crypt. Bcrypt to be equals to what? Require what? Bcrypt. Are we there? So you can see now. So I have actually imported bcrypt now. So what am I going to be doing with bcrypt? Let's see. How do we make use of it? Now, this student schema now, I'm going to bring it down here and say student schema dot pre. And you see, there is this method called pre for the student schema, right? So I will now open, it's going to is a method, so it's going to come with what? With a parenthesis. Now, pre what? Pre-save. That is, before this password is being saved, there is a particular thing I want to happen. I want something to happen before this schema, the whole of this schema, this student schema, before it's going to be saved. Whatever information that is being entered into the body of this schema, before it's going to be saved, I want something to happen. That's what is meant by pre-save, before it is being saved, right? What is going to happen? Now, there's going to be an asynchronous function that will be invoked, right? So you say async a particular function, right? That function is going to take an argument. That argument is next, because immediately after this function, we want to move to the next thing. So it's going to take an argument next. Then you have your what? Your curly braces. Then you now tell us what happened in the body of that function here. Now, what happened in the function is that you want to encrypt the password. That is what we want to do in the body of this what? This particular function now. How do we do that? Encrypting means you are hash coding your password. Please get that. When you encrypt a password, it means you are hash coding it. Do you get now? So we are going to call the variable hash. We are going to call it hash because we want to hash code the password. So you say const hash, right, is going to be what? Await. We are now going to await what the B script is going to do now. B what? Script. Script, right? Dot hash. Right? What is it hashing? It is hashing this dot, that is this object, whatever object, whatever that is being entered into the body of the request. Are you getting me? For this particular schema is going to be this. So this is representing the object, then it's going to be what? This dot what? Dot password. That is what we are encrypting. Okay, is bcrypt, not bscript. Bcrypt. Async const hash equals to async big wait big crypt dot what dot add this password. Okay. Function next. Okay. Now, are we there? When it hashes, then the hashing is going to take some count. The standard is the count is going to be maybe like 5 to 15. That hashing process, there is a count for that hashing process. When it takes a password, it begins to sort it. There's something we call sorting, SALT, sort. It begins to sort it. These are the things that happen internally. Anyway, I'm just saying it so that we can understand. It performs an action called sort in order to transform the password into an hash. So you can give how many count. You can say the count is 5. You can say the count is 6. You can say the count is 7. You can give it any number, but let's use 10 because that is what Daniel used as well. We can use 10, right? But the maximum numbers of sorting number is what? Is 15. Is between 5 and 15. Hello, am I communicating? Are we together? I want
Yes.
response.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's very good. So you understand this line 22 now. So this now means what? This object, then dot password. We are picking only the password because we are interested in only hashing the what? Hash coding the what? The password, right? So after hash coding the password, what do we want to happen? Then we can now say this, you can say this dot password to be equal to what? To be equal to hash. That is the next thing. This hash, this line 22 is going to convert the password into an hash what? Into an hash code, which is the what? The encryption has happened and is now an hash. So we are now saying, okay, having done that, let the password in this object now to be what? To be equals to the hash. So this dot password is equals to what? Is equals to hash. Then having done that, we can now say move to the next thing. That's the next thing. We can now say next, do the next thing. Now, what is going to be the next thing? Now, the next thing is that we want to compare the password, which is this RAS404. Now, for example, now, let's say the password is RAS404. We want to compare it with the what? With the hash. So we already have hash formats and we have the raw format, right? So this raw format and the hash format, we want to compare the two. It's very important you do comparison. That is the standard before you move on to the next thing. So in order to do that, we are going to call our student schema again. Our student schema. Please, you need to understand what you are doing for each step. That is what will make you to understand this thing. So you will see that I will always explain what we want to do before we start writing the code. So that will make you to always remember. So for me now, I have that in my brain that, okay, after this, I have to do this, I have to do this, then I will master the code, then start writing the code. And that is what we call algorithm, even in the first place, right? So you should have an algorithm, a step-by-step explanation of what you want to implement before you start writing the code, right? So you must first of all understand the algorithm before you start writing. So, and that will make it stick in your brain. Now, let's move on. We have been able to what? Convert our password to hash. Then the next thing is for us to what? To compare it. Now we say student schema dot what? Okay, sorry, student schema, yes, dot method. There is a particular method we are going to define ourselves. Dot what? What do we want to, what is the method? No, since we are comparing the password, we can call it is valid password. We can call the method is valid password. No, it's valid password. That is, we are saying, okay, inside this two-step schema, we want a method that we check whether the password is what is valid, right? So we now say, okay, this check should be equal to a particular function, right? Which is going to be an asynchronous function check. So we are going to async a particular function here too. Function, right? So async function, and what is going to be the function? Async function, okay, let's have it the normal way we used to have function. We have our curly bracket, then we come down, we write the body of the function. So inside this function now, we want to make comparison. So we are going to have a variable called compare, const compare. We want to make a comparison. compare to be equals to, now what are we comparing? We are going to use the big script package, right, to do the comparison as well, since we generated the hash from bcrypt. So we will use the bcrypt to do the what? The comparison, and store it inside this compare, which is going to be a boolean. So this compare is going to return whether true or what, or false. So const compare. So what are you comparing? Okay, let's await, because any action by the what? By the bcrypt is going to be a promise. So you must always have an async and what? And await, right? So we are awaiting what? What are we awaiting? bcrypt bcrypt dot compare. So we are awaiting that function bcrypt dot what? Dot compare. So what are we now comparing is what you now have inside this parentheses. Now, what are we comparing? We are comparing the raw string password, this as 404, and the hash word and the hash password. So here you are going to write password, just ordinary password, then comma. We are comparing password. Now, this password now is going to be caching this password here, this password in line 17, which is the raw password, RAS404, right, that we entered. So is what this password is referencing, right? So then you are comparing it with the hashed password, the encrypted password. You now say this, and that one is this dot password. You remember, this was password. But what we are going to do is that let's change it. Let's make it something different. Let's reassign it. Let's say const what? Const student. Const student equals to what? Equals to this dot password. This dot password. Right? So we are actually reassigning the this dot password to what? To students, right? Or what am I doing? Okay, no, not this. Just let's call it this. Sorry, because we want to actually call the password here. So let's say this. Let's say the this, right? The this is representing all the objects. We are now assigning it to student because it is the this is actually representing student. If we are creating a model for user, the this will be referring to what? To user. Do you understand? If we are creating a model for lecturer, the this will be referring to what? To lecturer. So since we are defining a model for what? For student, the this is what? Is assigned to what? To student. So that here we cannot say, so that it's going to make more sense to us. Instead of using this, what does this means? So this is referring to the student. So we now say student what? Student dot password, right? So student dot password. So that is what we are doing here, right? So we are making our comparison, and after making our comparison, we can now return compare. We can now return compare. That's what. So returning compare will tell us whether it is true or it is what? It is false. So if they are comparable, if the password that is being stored inside this hash password matches, then the return statement is going to be true, right? So then the next thing can happen. So having done this, what is the next thing? The next thing is for us to what? Is to model our schema. Is to what? Model our schema and export it. So we are going to have module dot export to be equals to what? Mongoose. Sorry. Mongoose dot what? Dot. Please note this model. This is another very key word. Mongoose dot what? Dot model. This model is a very important method of Mongoose that it's used in modeling the what? The schema. So now you now say model. What is it modeling? What is it modeling? Of course, it is modeling our schema. So what we are going to have here is the what? Is the okay, it's going to take two arguments. When it's modeling, the first argument is going to be what are you generating? What is the name of the table you are generating from the model? That would be the first argument. And of course, our table is going to be students, right? Students. So please, it's capital letter, is pluralized. When you are declaring the name of your table, it has to be pluralized. Students, not students, because in that table you are going to have so many students. So let the name of the table to be in what? In plural, right? So students. Then from which model? From the student, from which schema rather? From the student what? Student schema. We are going to pass that here. and this is what you are exporting. So what we have, I'm done with the model. I'm done with the model. What we have done so far, I want to believe you understand, is that we have been able to get the schema from mongoose. After importing mongoose, we get the schema from it. Then we use an instance of that schema to generate our attribute with the what? With the constraints, right? So, and I told you to note some very important thing here. When you are actually making your ID to be short ID, let the I to be small letter, not capital letter. Don't make that mistake, right? So, sorry, is even at this place, short ID, but this one can be anything, is a variable. So, it doesn't mean at this point, right? Then dot generate will help you to generate the short ID. You said the auto increment will be true so that it can be increasing 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is that. Then having done that, we now said, okay, we want to encrypt our password, line 21. We want to encrypt our password. We don't want our password to be visible. We want to hide it. We want to hide it so that it's not going to be visible for even the developers, the admin of the application will not even be able to decode the password. It will only be known by anybody that sign up into the what application, right? So the password RAS404, for example, now we are now trying to encrypt it using what? bcrypt.hash. So this is the hashing. Look at the syntax. Let's try to get it. I've explained it. So after hash coding it, then we need to compare it. That is it, that hash, what we end up hashing, is it the same with the raw password? So we did the comparison here, and it's going to return a boolean, which is going to be true or what? Or false. Then we now export our model. Is that clear? Can we move to the next thing?
Yes, it's very clear.
God bless you. Please, if you have question, ask. This model is very important. It determines every other thing that happen. If you have question here, please ask. You need to get this model perfectly. You must not make mistake. When there is a mistake in the model, then everything there will be a problem, right? Okay, let's move on because of time. We already have our model. The next thing is for us to import it, right? Where are we importing it? We are importing it into our route. So we are going back into our student router here, right, in order to import it. So we have const what? Const student model, right, to be equals to require, right? What are we requiring? We are requiring where we have the model. So please don't always make mistake when you are moving from one folder to another folder. So you need to check where you are. We are presently in the what? In the student route. We are in the student route here. We now want to go into the student model here. So that means we need to move out of this space first inside this student folder. So it's going to be dot dot slash, right? So that means we are moving out of this student folder in order to be able to access the model. Can you see? VS Code has even suggested every other folder and files available outside the student folder. So you move the student to the models, then slash what? To give you option, student. Then you now pick student. Then you pick your student. So that is it. So now you have been able to grab the what? The model now, and you store it inside student what? Model. Now here you are now going to use it. Okay, student model. Okay, good. This one is now going to be small letter s. Sorry, because I have it as small letter s here. So student model. Good. Now this is active now. It is connected to this. This is active now and connected to this. Even if I just move back now, if I press dot, it's going to give me every method that the student model has. Dot. Can you see? So that means it has been cached. Before now, you will not see all this option because we have not imported any model. But now that we have imported model, when you press dot, it will give you all the available what method for that model. So what do we want to do? We want to create. When you type create now, it will give you option. Can you see create? So we want to create a student. That's what we want to do. We are not finding. We want to create now. Good. Now you create, you open your parentheses, you want to create. Now what are you creating? You are creating you are creating for what you have in the body of the request in line 7, which we grabbed through request.body, right? So you are going to put your body here, body. So it's created like this. But mind you, there's something very important we are missing now. If we don't put this, we are going to run into issue. Anytime your student model is performing any action, whether create, whether find, whether update, whether delete, all the CRUD operations are here. So any of the CRUD operation is going to be a promise. So you are supposed to await it, right? And before you can have the next thing. And remember, whenever you are await, you must have what? You must have async for the function that is being called. So async must be here. Then this one is going to be await. Please remember that. Remember that. So now we await it and we get the result. So the new student has been what? Has been created. Now this new student has been created. We want it to show. We want to respond with it, right? Of course, at this level now, it will be created in our database, but we also want to see it. So that's why we are going to have response now. Response.status, which is 200. That means it is successful. Then we now have dot what? Dot JSON, right? What are you JSON? We want to JSON the new student, right? Okay, the new student that has been created. So we also want to see it. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we already have our student created, but our application is not relating with it at the moment. We need to export it and also import it in our app.js so that this our application can relate with it. So we are going to have module.exports to be equals to what? Student router, right? Student router. Good. Student router, right? So we are exporting our student router. Then we can now come to our app.js here and import it. But before I leave that student router, let me ask before I go to the next file, here at this stage, any question? Do you understand this? What is happening here in the student route file? Do you understand? Any question? Hello?
I think it's clear.
Okay, you think it's clear, you are not sure. Let it be clear, please. Let it be clear. If there is anywhere confusing, ask question. Why is this? Why is this? Please ask. Okay, if it is clear, let's move on. We have it. Now let's go to app.js and do the import now. So I'm going to say const what? Student route to be equals to what? Require. What are we requiring? We are requiring the what? The student route, right? From the app.js, we are going to have dot slash enter into the students, right? Oh, sorry. Yeah, student folder, then slash what? Slash student route, right? So we have that being grabbed. Then we can now ask our app to use it. So we can say const what? Const app dot use, right? Const app, sorry. What am I saying? I'm not saying it's not going to be const. You just say app dot what? App dot use, right? So what is your app using? Is using the student route. Then when the URL is going to be tried, should be start students, right? Start students. You go to the slash. We are telling our application that whenever we want to create a student, then the URL should be slash student. That is the root directory slash student. Good. Then comma Then the next thing we are going to have is what? Our student route. So we now bring it here. Copy and what? And paste. So our app is using it successfully here. But now, having done that, we have been able to uh, we have been able to connect we have been able to connect our route to the application. But I want to ask a question here. Have we connected this our application to the database? The answer is no. We have not connected this application to what? To the database. So because in order to do that, we are going to create a particular folder which I have created called what? Config. This config is to connect our application to the database. Please, let's get that. We are done with the logic of the student model now, and it's going to work fine. But before it can work, we need to connect this application to the what? To the database. How do we do that? You create, this is another concept now, connecting it now. You are going to create a folder called config, and inside this config now, I've created a file called mongoose.js. You can call it mongoose.js. That's the name of the file now. Now, this mongoose.js, if you open it, I've actually written the connection there, but I'm going to what? I'm going to comment it out and follow the step again so that we can learn how it is being done. Let me push this down, right? Let me push it down and write it again. So now, how will you connect your application to the database? So you are going to need mongoose to do that. So you are going to say const what? Mongoose to be equals to require what? Mongoose. Are we together? Hello?
Yes.
Good. What I want to do now is to connect our application to database. So let's see how it is being done. So when you say const mongoose to be equals to require mongoose, you will need to declare a function now. So let's call the function, let's say function what? Connect. Let's call it connect. Let's click function what? Connect. Then we have a curly brace as usual. Then what is going to be inside our connect function? Our connect function is going to run this command called mongoose. We're going to have mongoose dot what? Dot connect. Then here inside these parentheses, you are going to put the connection URL. You are going to put the what? Connection URL. And don't forget, this connection URL, we already have it in our what? In our environment variable, right? So this is our connection URL. So where do we copy this connection URL from? It's coming from our database because we want to connect with it, right? So where do we get it from? Let me quickly show you where we get it from, right? So you go to your browser and you log into your what? You log into your Atlas. You log into your Atlas, which I have actually done. I have logged in already to make this work. This is my Atlas, right? This is my Atlas. So here, you are going to see your connection URL. Let me see deployment. This is all our deployment. Okay. Let me come to the beginning here. Okay. These are projects. I'm looking at where is that connection? Integration setting alert. I'm coming now. I'm looking at where we did that connection. Copy the connection URL from. Okay, let me come to projects. Okay, book API. Book API. Okay, can you see this is the project book API? Then when you click on connect here, connect, now you are going to see this information about different connection you can do. Drivers, Compass, Shell, mongoDB. Now we are connecting mongoDB for VS Code. That's what we are trying to do now. So you click on mongoDB for VS Code, and here you will see connect to your mongoDB deployment. Then you will come here. Can you see? You copy it. Can you see this? This is exactly what I copied into the what? Into the VS Code. Can we all see it? Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay, exactly. So you can see this is how this is where you copy it from. So then you can now copy, come to your VS Code, then you paste it here. Then you will notice that when you paste, if you look at this, okay, let me click connect again. I want to show you something. If you look at it, you will see that here it is password that is being written. The password is not stated here, right? And after this slash, you don't have the name of the what? Of the database that you are connecting with. You only have your username, Sulaiman, right? So when you now copy, right? When you copy into your VCS code, you will that place that they wrote password, you now put your password as I have done here by putting this password here. Then you come to where there is .NET. After .NET, you put slash, you put the database you are connecting to. So that is what you store in what? In your DB URL. So what we store in this DB URL now, we are now going to grab it now in our configuration now when we are trying to connect. So we now say process dot what? Dot env dot what? DB URL. Can you see now? DB URL. So we are catching the DB URL. Is that the way we write it? URL, you confirm it. Okay, DB URL, check it very well. Make sure you are catching the right thing. Okay, so it has been cached. Then when you say process, you not spread this one very well. Process. So when you say process.env, you are actually using the .env package. So you need to require it. So we are going to require .env, require .env, then dot what? .config, right? So outside dot what? .config, right? So you are requiring that so that this is going to work. It's going to be cached. So now, having connected, then you need to come down and say, okay, if this thing has connected, you can now run mongoose dot connection dot what? Dot unconnect. You want to test it if it is actually connected. You see, mongoose dot connection dot unconnected. Please note all this. Mongoose dot connection dot unconnected. This is connection, this is connected. So mongoose dot connection is the method which you are calling. Then you're not saying dot on, that is when it is connected, then you should have a callback function, right? You want a callback function. And that callback function, you want it to console dot what? Console dot log. What is it consoling dot log? Database connection is what? Successful. That's what you are actually printing. Then you come down again and also repeat the same thing, that mongoose dot what? Dot connection dot what? On this time around now, it's not going to be on unconnected. It's going to be on error. That is if there is error. So you want to handle the error, then you come here and say what? Callback function again. Are we there? So a callback function again, and console.log, console.log. What are you consoling.log? You can say database connection failed. Database connection failed, right? So of course, after failing it, then you can pass that error as an argument so that you can print the error and get the error. So you can say comma L so that you can actually print out the error. Do you understand? So that is it. Yeah, that matches. Good. So now this is how you do your connection. Then this particular connection that you have done, you need to this connect function now, you need to export it. So you say module dot export to be equal to what? That function connect. Can you see this connect function now? You are exporting it. Don't forget it's a function. It's going to be in the curly brace. Please, I mentioned that before in our previous classes. Whenever you are exporting a function, it's going to be in a what? In a curly what? In a curly brace, right? So that is the way you export it. Then you now come to your app.js now. This function that you have actually exported now, you can now import it into your app.js and call it, right? So you come here and say const what? Const connect. What's the function? Dot connect to be equals to what? Require. Do you understand the difference between all this one and this? This one we are actually importing the only the what? Only the function, right? So not all the file, but just the what? The function. So dot what? Slash. Where are we going to? We are going inside the inside this config, Abby. From here, then config, then dot mongoose, right? That's where we have it. So please don't always get your part right. So that's where we have it. So we'll be able to catch the connect. Then you now say after your app is using, after your app has been declared, the first thing you should do is to declare that function. Please get the arrangement. After you declare your app, the first thing you should call is that connection, so that as your app is being declared, then you call the function before every other thing, before your app can start using the route. Get that arrangement very well, because you might run into issue if you don't get the arrangement. So what you should have now is connect, right? Connect. So you are calling it now. Can you see? It has been called. So we are done. It is time for us to test everything we have written, right? So we can now start our application now by coming here to say node app.js. Are we there? Hello, are we together? We want to start test. We want
Yes.
to test now. We want to test now. So we are done with our code. Node app.js. Enter. Okay, app is listening. Then we are waiting for the connection. Good. Database connection is successful. It has listened and it has connected successfully. But there is a warning message here which we are going to ignore. The warning message is talking about our short ID here. He's saying mongoose cannot specify a custom index on ID for model name students. mongoDB does not allow overwriting the default ID index. Yes, remember that mongoDB has a default ID that it uses, that it generates for every information you are trying to create. But we don't want to use that default ID. We want to use short ID in place of it. Do you understand? That is why we are having this warning message, but we can ignore it. We can ignore it. We are still going to force it in. Do you understand that? So let's ignore that. So let's go to the body of our request now. So let's go, and what I'm going to do now is that let me bring the schema so that I can get the arrangement. Where is the schema? Student.js. Here, right? Student.js. No, this one should be here. Then let me split it. Let me split it and put student.js, this other side. I want to put this one this side. Okay, don't share it. No, 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 no. Okay, let me close this. Don't worry, I will just go and check it. Are we together? Okay, so we have, okay, sorry, this one is for seller. I'm going for student. Where's the student again? Okay, this is it. Okay, now the first thing is ID, Abby. Okay, so let's go to we have ID, first name, last name, password, email. Okay, let's come here and start entering our information. So we have that ID. We are not going to specify it because it's going to be auto generating, right? So we are not going to put ID. We are only going to have first name, last name, then what do you have? First name, last name. Are we together? Password and email. Yes. Are we there?
Yes.
Okay. Password and email. So this is what we have in our model. So please, when you are putting your information, it has to be in line with what you have in your model. Can you see ID, first name, last name, password, email? So this ID is going to be auto-generated. So you can see we say auto increment will be true. So you don't need to specify the ID. It's going to take care of itself, right? And it's going to be short.
Rashid,
Hello?
that default is spelled wrongly.
Okay. The default is spelled wrongly. Okay, AULT. Oh, sorry. Good. Okay, it is DE, default. Okay, thank you. It means you are following. Thank you. I love that. So the default is this. Okay. We have made a change because I'm not using node more. We have made a change, so I'm going to restart it. Don't forget, when you are not using node more and you make a change, you have to restart your server. So I'm doing that. Okay. App.listening, then connected. Then we have this warning message, which I said we should ignore, right? So now, first name, last name, password, email. Okay, let's send it now. Okay, it's going to be /students now. /students. And it's going to be a post, right?